Welcome to Biztech's APAC Cybersecurity Show. Hi, I'm Brian Fernandez, and Commvault Systems Inc. is a Nasdaq-listed data protection and data management software company headquarters in Trenton Falls, New Jersey. Now, it's the gold standard in cyber resilience, helping more than 100,000 organizations to uncover, take action, and rapidly recover from cyber attacks. Now, keeping data safe and businesses resilient and moving forward. Now, to tell us more about the company and how it helps global organizations today, we have Martin Creighan. He's the Vice President, Asia Pacific at Commvault. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Martin, Commvault is an old name in the business. Could you just give us a perspective of what Commvault does, a little bit of its history, and also the size of your footprint in the Asia-Pacific region?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So it is a bit of an old name. So Commvault's been around for over 28 years. And we originally started in the marketplace, as you just articulated, in the backup industry. So providing backup services to predominantly enterprise organizations. And over the last 28 years, we've been on a significant journey. And specifically, Brian, over the last 2 years, we've really accelerated that journey. So we moved from backup into data protection, and now we're considered leaders in cyber resiliency. And so if you think about that for a second, what is cyber resiliency? It's somewhat of a new term, and even some of the actual analysts are starting to use it more and more, and they're starting to do programs and research on it. But what is cyber resilience? What does that mean? What it means to Commvault is an enterprise's ability to be under a cyber attack and to be able to continue to operate. Or more importantly, when a cyber incident or an incident of any kind happens, an enterprise's ability to continue their business operations. In Commvault, we are the leaders in cyber resilience today. And of course, that's not just us saying that. We have the industry analysts who are saying it as well. But most importantly, I think it's really important to say, Brian, that Commvault matters. And the reason why we matter is in the time of need, when organizations are under attack, it's Commvault that helps our customers. And if I can just leave you with one example of that. In the past 6 months alone, we've helped more than 700 enterprise organizations recover from a ransomware attack. And those are just the organizations that we know that have reached out to us and said, hey, can you help us out? But we literally have thousands and thousands of organizations who use our platform on a day-to-day basis and are recovering from cyber incidents on a daily basis without our knowledge. So the reason why I say Commvault matters is because without a platform like Commvault, it would be very difficult for enterprise and business organizations to recover from a cyber incident. And if I actually leave you one last point on that, from a Commvault point of view, the reason why we say we are the leaders in cyber resilience is because we are the only ones that have what we call a true cyber resilience platform that we refer to as Commvault Cloud. And that basically combines the best of data security, rapid recovery, at scale in the enterprise, across any workload, anywhere, and we help organizations do that at the lowest total cost of ownership. So if I'm an executive and I'm thinking, what's my risk profile look like today? And what are the cyber incidents like in my environment? And am I prepared? Then I'm certainly going to look to a partner like Commvault to help me in my risk profile and to make sure that if an incident does happen, that we're ready to recover ASAP.
Now, Martin, I'm going to come back to that cyber resiliency in a little bit. But what does Commvault's footprint look like in the Asia-Pacific region today?
Sorry, I missed that part. So, so our presence is we have a presence across all of Asia-Pacific. So I'm responsible for everything from India all the way up to Korea and Japan, all the way down to Australia and New Zealand. And of course, we cover all of ASEAN. We actually have major data centers and major presence in your strongholds in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, of course, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. But we have presence across all of Asia. We also extensively operate through an elaborate channel network, and an alliance network. So partnering with many VARs or value-added resellers, as well as global alliances to make sure that we're giving coverage across all of Asia Pacific, and that we can cover not only all of Asia Pacific from a geography point of view, but also cover it from an industry and a market point of view, whether you're a small to medium enterprise, a mid-tier enterprise, or a large enterprise. Between us and our partners and our ecosystem, we have you covered.
And which leads me to my next question, Martin, which is essentially, with the start of 2025, what are you seeing across the region in terms of the key priorities for APAC leaders from a cybersecurity and a cyber resilience perspective?
Yeah, this is a great question. And the reason being is at the beginning of this interview, I actually said, at Commvault, we matter. And the reason why we matter is organizations and enterprises are leaning on us in the time of need. The reason why they're leaning on us in a time of need is because the threat vectors and the threat actors are accelerating. And as we introduce new technology like AI, although it's actually bringing some wonderful innovation and wonderful capability to many companies and enterprises, including Commvault, it's also introducing new threat vectors and new areas for attackers to attack our enterprise organization.
And it's an arms race, isn't it? Because basically the bad actors introduce tools, and then the good actors then have countermeasures to basically counteract those new tools. And it goes on.
Absolutely. In fact, we call it fight AI with AI. And it's just going to get more prevalent. It's going to get more prevalent in our industry. And the reason why, you're in Malaysia, you're in KL, correct, Brian?
Yes.
So I'll use Malaysia as the example, right? Malaysia is the top Southeast Asian country facing web threats, up to 19.6 million attacks in the first half of 2024 alone. And that's followed by Indonesia, which significantly drops to 3.2 million. Then Vietnam at 1.4, Thailand at 1, Philippines at just almost 1, and so on. So Malaysia is the most attacked country in ASEAN. So, and according to Malaysia's Cyber 999 Incident Report Center, they received over 1,600 incidents in just Q3 of 2024 alone. And so this means that the threat is real. And with the use of technology and innovation like AI, the threat is going to get even more pervasive, and it's actually going to increase significantly. In addition, in Malaysia, Malaysians have lost more than US $12.8 billion, or more than 54 billion ringgit to scams in a year. In 1 year alone, $12.8 billion US. And that represents 3% of the country's gross GDP. So
those are phenomenal numbers.
Phenomenal numbers, right? So it is absolutely important to make sure that we put into context why we matter. So if you look at over 1,500 cyber attacks that were reported to the Malaysian ministries and the infrastructure systems in 2024, and if you look at attacks like the Prasarana attack that actually happened when a compromise of over 316 gigabytes of data was compromised. And this is a very public thing. You can go look it up in the newspapers, etc. It just means that these attacks are pervasive. But, Brian, it doesn't only stop in Malaysia. I was in Indonesia in June. And of course, Indonesia is part of my territory. And Indonesia is one of the fastest growing economies and one of the fastest growing areas for tech and innovation in all of ASEAN and all of Asia. So I'm there on a regular basis. I'm there at least once a quarter, if not 2 or 3 times a quarter. I flew into Indonesia in June, and being from Australia and holding an Australian-New Zealand passport, I of course have to get a visa on arrival. So normally it's no problem. You land at Jakarta, you go through the airport, you wait in a line or a queue for, maybe 5-10 minutes. You pay, the equivalent of 50 Australian dollars. You get your visa on arrival and you go through customs. Well, when I visited in June, I landed, I got off the plane. When I got off the plane and I was walking towards immigration, there was a queue or a line that was a kilometer deep. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck is happening? Like, it's never this. Sometimes it's bad. It can be bad, right? Because it is Jakarta and there's a lot of traffic.
Yes.
But it's never that bad. So I said, what the heck is going on? So I got onto my phone to find out what's going on. And I started pinging my team, as well as I started talking to some of our channel partners in an ecosystem in Indonesia. And I started looking at the news. Well, as it turns out, Indonesia government, and particularly specifically CDN, which is the major data center provider for Indonesian government departments, was under attack, under ransomware attack. Once again, you can read about it. It's in the news. Public attack.
Yes, that was a very embarrassing thing for the government at that time.
It was terrible. It was horrible that, here it is, a government entity being attacked, and they are being held for, I think it was $8 million in ransom from some bad actor and some bad organization. So I guess the reason why I raise it is Malaysia, although has the highest in regards to cyber threats, cyber attacks, etc., it's not alone. These attacks are pervasive, they're increasing, and they're accelerating on a regular basis. So what we have to do from a business point of view and from a leadership point of view is make sure that we're mitigating that risk and make sure we're ready for the attack.
Now, how does this then compare? Because APAC is the most attacked region. For what my research tells me, how are more mature cyber resilient economies like Japan, Australia, and Singapore coping with this, and how do the numbers stack up?
Once again, some of those even let's call it more advanced economies, and in some cases technologies or countries are being attacked at the same rates. In some countries a little bit higher than others, but the threat is there and the threat is global. There's no one immune to the threat, and there's no country, no company, etc., immune to the threat. The difference is the capability, the innovation, and the tools and platforms that are being utilized and put in place to mitigate our risk, mitigate the company's risk, mitigate the country's risk, to make sure that folks can continue to operate. So if we think about it, we talked about AI a moment ago, Brian. There's some countries that are a heck of a lot more advanced in AI and AI-built technology versus other countries. But if we look at a recent IDC report across Asia Pacific, IDC is estimating that AI investments will reach over $110 billion by 2028. And this is basically going to establish the Asia Pacific region as a leader, a global leader in AI technology. Now, as much as that innovation and that investment is very exciting, because what does the future hold for us, as we say, with the advent of AI? It's going to help us drive innovation, right? It's going to help us drive innovation and robust cybersecurity across Asia Pacific. However, it's also going to drive the absolute need for cyber resilience. Ransomware is pervasive. And making cyber resilience a critical requirement across the digital enterprise to ensure business continuity is an absolute must, right? So if we use, once again, Malaysia as the example, the threat vectors and the attacks are increasing. Same thing's happening in Japan, by the way. The threat vector and the attacks are happening specifically in the banking and finance and insurance industries. Those are normally the first industries that are getting attacked. So the need for cyber resilience is there. And the need for technology and the use of technology and use of technology platforms is also there. So when it comes to innovation and technology like AI, partnerships to form partnerships around AI, the use of AI, and utilizing that for innovation and security is going to help all of us become more secure and help us fight the battle against AI. It comes back to what I was saying. It's the old fight AI with AI scenario. So Malaysia is not the only country, and yes, some of the more advanced countries and bigger economies across Asia Pacific, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, and so on, are all under a threat. And then if you look at some of the other countries, Taiwan as an example, which is the largest semiconductor producer in the world, the number of ransomware attacks that Taiwan is facing on a daily basis is outpacing Malaysia.
Okay, so let me ask you something, Martin.
Sure.
Commvault has been always, over the years, a big proponent of organizations taking a proactive approach to cybersecurity. So rather than a reactive approach. So let me put a scenario to you. I'm a CEO of a regional company. I'm the CEO. I'm not the CISO. I'm the CEO. What do I need to do as an organization to take a proactive company-wide approach towards cybersecurity and cyber resilience? what do I need to think about?
The first thing that you need to do as a senior leader, like a CEO in these companies, is make sure that you have a plan. I haven't come across a company yet, an enterprise or organization yet, that hasn't spent money on innovation and technology to help them fight against cybersecurity or against a cyber incident or threat landscape. Where we're seeing companies, enterprises, mid-tier enterprises, small to medium businesses, where we're seeing them fall down is most of them also have a plan, but where they really start to fall down is the testing of the plan. So that in the case of the incident, have we tested the plan? Is the plan foolproof? Do we have a playbook? Do we have a script? Do we have a run book that we can run and make sure that we recover as rapidly as possible, or to make sure that we can protect as many of our data assets as possible to limit the fallout, to limit the attack, and make sure that we, most importantly, can continue to operate. So there's two aspects there, Brian. The first thing is make sure you have the plan. The second thing is test the plan. Here's a little interesting tidbit for you. In this past year, in April and May of this year, we did two surveys. One survey was a global survey that we conducted in accordance with GigaOM, and I'll come back to that one in 1 second. The second survey was a survey that we conducted with Tech Research Asia. And with Tech Research Asia, we actually interviewed over 1,400 enterprise organizations across all of ASEAN and ANZ was the test case, the test bed, the markets. What we found out was something that was extremely terrifying, but at the same time, not surprising, but very interesting. And what that was is in the survey, we asked senior leaders, in the case of a cyber incident or cyber attack, what is your expectation or what is your requirement in regards to your ability to recover, i.e., how long can you afford to be down or how fast do you need to be back online? CEO, CFO, COO, etc., all the executives that run the business and have responsibility for that business, they over 80%, 88+% of them said 24 to 48 hours. We then asked the folks that the CISOs, as you spoke about, and the CIOs, and the folks that run IT ops, and the folks that run SecOps. We asked them the same question. In the case of a cyber incident, how long will it take you to recover on average? More than 88% again, almost 90% again said 5 to 7 business days. So we already have a massive discrepancy or a massive issue in that the executive team saying, hey, we need to be back within 24 to 48 hours. And then the actual IT SecOps team is saying, hey, it's going to take us at least 5 to 7 days.
Wow. So how do we narrow this gap? Because that's a substantial gap.
It's not only substantial, it's scary. Here's the reason why it's scary, Brian. Remember I was saying at the beginning of the interview, we've helped hundreds of customers in the last 6 months recover from a ransomware or cyber incident. Or
you said like 700 plus, right?
More than 700 plus, right? And those are just the ones we know about again, okay? So those are just ones we know about. How long do you think the average is for those companies on a global basis to recover? So keep in mind, the CEO and CFO said 24 to 48 hours. The IT and SecOps teams are saying 5 to 7 business days. What do you think reality is?
Maybe reality is probably in between 3 to 5 days.
The global average is 24 business days. The global average, actually, pardon me, the global average is 24 days. 24 days. Now, in Australia and New Zealand, for some reason, we don't know why, but the numbers have come back and validated this. It's 45 days. And in some countries across Asia, Malaysia being one of them, it's closer to the Australian average of almost 40 days in regards to average time to recovery. So that is a huge issue. So once again, the executive team is saying, hey, I need this thing back in 24 to 48 hours. IT and SecOps are saying, hey, we're going to give it to you in 5 to 7 days. The reason, so we double clicked on that. What are the reasons? There's 2 or 3 primary reasons. The first one is the lack of testing. So enterprise organizations and companies just aren't testing the plan. What they're doing is tabletop exercises or they're doing checklists, but they're not testing.
So in other words, there are no drills. So again, there's no muscle memory involved within the organization. The plans are there are no drills, and therefore people don't know what to do when something happens. Is that precisely that?
And not only sometimes they'll run a tabletop drill, but they're not actually living a live environment. Like they're not taking systems down and recovering them and bringing them back and simulating a real live environment. They're not doing it. Pardon me. Now, what's really interesting, think about what you just said. They don't have the muscle memory. Really important term there. They don't have the muscle memory. The reason why that's important is when we double click on why are they not testing, right? Three primary reasons why they're not testing. The first one is they don't have the money. It costs money to test because testing takes time, people, infrastructure, et cetera. So they don't have money. The second one is they don't have the talent. So they don't have, they have IT and IT ops and SecOps, but they don't have the extra resources to run these tests in a deeper level, et cetera. And then the third reason is they don't have the spare infrastructure sitting on the floor in the data center, et cetera. So those three things are preventing them from doing in-depth tests and building the run books or building the scripts or the playbooks so that they can build muscle memory on here's our critical applications. These are our crown jewels. And if anything happens, this is the process that we go through step by step. It's the muscle memory of how we will recover them and do that in a rapid manner. That's why it's taking so long. Okay, so that's one aspect. The second aspect that we found is if you take a look at that 24 days in the global average, or that 45 days, which is in ANZ, and in some places in Asia, it's nearing 40, as I mentioned. If you take a look at that, there's a couple of key components. The first one is it takes almost a couple of weeks to find the recovery point. So where did the ransomware get into my environment? How can I find where to recover from? So the RPO, how do I find the RPO? That's number one. So that's taking some time. The second major piece of that is actually rebuilding the applications. On average, we're seeing 3 to 4 weeks rebuilding applications. And then, of course, many organizations just don't have that test script or that plan. So that's what's taking them so long as well, because what they're doing is they're finding out all the challenges and issues as they try to recover versus running that in-depth testing scenario and identifying them beforehand. So in the case of an incident, they can rapidly recover.
So now let me ask you a different question, Martin. Same scenario, same person, same CEO. Now that you've told me the challenges, and I'm not ready as a CEO, as my organization is definitely not ready, what can we do in the next 90 to 180 days to get ready?
Like I said, first thing is, do you have a plan? Second thing is, do you actually have if you have a plan, have you tested it? Have you got that muscle memory, et cetera? And then the third thing is, do you have the platforms, the technology, i.e. the people process technology, to make sure that in the case of an attack, you could rapidly recover?
So how would somebody like Commvault help me?
Oh, great question. So thank you. So this is why Commvault has really evolved, Brian, over the last 10 years, and specifically over the last 2 years. And this is why we're known as the leaders in cyber resilience. How we help organizations is, remember I said, number one issue is people aren't testing. And the reason why they're not testing is money, people, and infrastructure. We solve that problem with what we call Commvault Clean Room Recovery. We have a capability where we can spin up a virtual instance in Azure or in AWS or in Google, for that matter, a capability around the Commvault Clean Room. And what that is a virtual instance of infrastructure that you can spin up on demand. You can actually import your data or bring your data into that environment. You can run all your test scripts, et cetera, build a run book, a playbook, and how to recover that workload, that application, et cetera. And then once you're done with all that testing, you can spin it back down. The clean room gives the organization the ability to reduce the cost because it's only brought up on demand when needed. We actually have an ecosystem of partners and alliance partners, et cetera, that can help with the testing, writing the scripts, and writing the run books themselves. And because this is an OpEx expense, it helps with budgets as well. So that's one thing that we've done. The second area that I mentioned that causes a lot of time in that time frame to recovery was the rebuild of applications. So back in April of this year, Commvault acquired a company called Appranix. And Appranix actually specializes in the automated rebuild of cloud-based applications. So in the case of an incident or attack, because the Appranix platform goes out and scans the environment, and it builds a model of the environment. So it does the data scanning, and it builds a replica of the environment, and it stores all the configurations, all the data, all the information on how to build that app. It can automate it and automate the rebuild of those applications in a matter of seconds or minutes, versus somebody having to manually do that in a matter of months. So we dramatically reduce the time it takes to rebuild the applications to bring those online. And then just in October, we acquired another company and integrated that into our platform called Clumio. And Clumio specializes in deep S3 and DynamoDB capability around, of course, protecting as well as backing up and recovering S3 assets in the Amazon Web Services environment, so the AWS environment. And as you know, AWS is still the largest public cloud provider in the world globally, and many organizations are using it. So Clumio gives those organizations the capability to protect their data, but also to rapidly recover it. And we're talking about billions of objects being stored in that database. And we're talking about a ton, like big S3 data loads. Clumio has the capability to do that and do it in a very rapid manner. So after those acquisitions, we renamed Appranix to what we call Commvault Rewind. And we built the Clumio capability into the platform, and we just released, just last month, we just announced it, what we call Clumio Backtrack, which is the automated capability of rebuilding and recovering a deep or a very large AWS S3 or DynamoDB environment.
Martin, it's been a fascinating conversation. It's been very educational. I've learned a lot, and obviously a great update for 2025. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So once again, I think the key here is, number one, all of our executives need to realize it's no longer a matter of if I get attacked, but when. So that's the first concept. The second thing is, when you are attacked, are you prepared? And can you recover? Do you have a plan? Do you have a platform? Do you have the assets and resources to give you the capability to recover rapidly? And third of all, if you have a plan, are you testing that plan? Are you testing it on a regular basis? And do you have a partner, a technology partner, and an innovator like Commvault that can help you along the way?
Martin, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Brian.
Now, we've been speaking to Martin Creighan. He's the Vice President of Asia Pacific at Commvault Inc. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's APAC Cybersecurity Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.